Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy, and if you're new here, welcome. I am a life and relationship coach, and on this channel we get to the root of the issue and we learn how to heal and deal. So if that's your thing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to be a part of the fam. And if you already are a subscriber, I really appreciate you so much. Today we're going to be talking about narcissistic fathers. So I think it's important to first understand what the father's role is. Now, like I've talked about in the past with my How to Heal from a Narcissistic Mother, I talked about how the mother's role is to be the nurturer and the caregiver. Now with the father, his role is to lay the ground rules and to be the security, the safety, and the one that reinforces the rules. And also something that's not talked about enough, but it is important as a father to be nurturing and loving and be a huge caregiver. But because we do have those gender roles, and because of toxic masculinity, it is not something that is talked about or seen enough. So each parent affects each gender differently. So with women, they look up to their fathers as an example of how a man is and how a man should treat her. Now with sons, they look at their fathers as an example of who to be. They see their fathers as the model, how they should be, what a man is supposed to look like. And in both cases, you will look to your father for approval, like you do with your mother. Now, when you have a narcissistic father, you have a very bad example. You have a father that is selfish, that is very entitled, there's always very big highs and low lows. And oftentimes he's emotionally and physically aloof. Maybe he'll be more physically there and less emotionally. Now, as I've mentioned before in my previous videos, narcissism is on a spectrum. So you have some narcissists that are on the lower end of the spectrum where they have a few narcissistic traits, and then there are ones that have the full-blown personality disorder. So each narcissistic father will be different. So some of the things you hear when it comes to narcissistic fathers you'll be able to relate to, and some of them they won't fit. But just because they don't fit doesn't mean that you didn't experience having a narcissistic father. So generally there's two types of narcissistic fathers. So there's the narcissistic father that is very emotionally and physically neglectful, or he may be just emotionally neglectful and not physically. And there is the narcissistic father that is overly involved in a selfish way. So the father that is completely neglectful, they won't spend time with you. They won't spend time getting to know you, who your friends are, your likes, your dislikes. They won't go and play games with you. They won't be very involved in the family events. They don't really care about you, what's going on with you. They don't really care if you've showered. For the physically neglectful fathers, or there's ones that only care about if you're physically good, and then emotionally they do not care at all. They don't care about your emotions. They don't care about how things affect you. They are completely neglectful. So you may go up to them and you're like, look dad, I made this picture, and they're like, okay kid, get lost. Or they're like, they show no attention to you at all. These fathers are more selfish and only care about like hobbies, maybe gambling, maybe they're an addict, maybe they care more about your relationship with your mom, they care more about sex, they care more about cheating, they care more about themselves than they care about their child. Then there's the narcissistic father that is overly involved because they want you to be who they want you to be. These fathers view their children as a direct extension of themselves. So they will push you to do a certain sport, maybe be involved in music. They want you to be the best at these things, and they only will take interest in things that they care about. So if you are involved in karate and they don't care about karate, they won't be involved. But if you're involved in baseball, or you're involved in dancing and cheerleading, and it's something that they can see that they can get the glory from, then they will be overly involved. They also will be maybe potentially overly involved in your studies because maybe they want you to go to a certain college, or they really care about you looking like you're very smart. They just care about your success, so then they can say that they had a part in it. And in those moments when you're making them proud, they'll be really, really nice to you. They will give you praise. They will make you feel wanted. They'll give you everything you want. Then in those moments when it's more negative, maybe you failed, maybe you're having a down moment, they'll be extremely abusive, maybe emotionally or physically. So they may scream at you, they may belittle you, they may degrade you, and they may gaslight you. So they'll make you feel like you're crazy. Or they may become completely neglectful and they'll give you silent treatment. And they want no part in that negative thing you're experiencing. You now have become a negative supply. When you were doing that thing that they wanted, you were the positive supply. And when you're doing something they don't like, or you are your own person and you're having an issue, they want no part of it and you are now a negative supply they can take their anger out on. Now, if you have a codependent narcissistic father, when you're down moments, they will want to be a part of it, so then they can remind you that they were there for you to take you out of that moment. And they like to feel like the guide and the leader, and they feel validated by taking care of you and making you overly dependent on them. Now, similar to narcissistic mothers, narcissistic fathers care very much about their image. They care more about how things appear rather than how they actually are. So you may see that your narcissistic father will make it look like to the outside world that you have a very good relationship. Maybe he'll brag about you to his friends or outside parties, or he tries to make it look like you guys have a really strong, tight family unit. He has a great relationship with his spouse. So you'll hear these things on the outside, but then when you're at home, it's completely different. He won't say any of those positive things you hear him saying to other people, or he'll completely neglect you or ignore your existence. Now, this is because of that image. He gets an ego boost by showing you off. So he will come across as shallow, perfect, no real depth to him. He is trying to create this delusion that he doesn't have struggles and he has this perfect image that he's created in his head. And if anyone ever tries to destroy that, he will wreak havoc. And this havoc is when he will throw a tantrum and he will be very physically and emotionally abusive, or he will give that silent treatment. So if it's someone in your circle, like in your household, that says something, you will then become the new target of his abuse. Or if it's someone in the outside world that says something negative, he won't like that person and he'll probably avoid them. So as a child, when you experience your narcissistic father saying all these positive things in public and then it's the opposite behind closed doors, it can be very confusing. It's the biggest form of gaslighting. When you're a kid and you can't reason, you're like, okay, my dad says all these positive things about me outside, but then he tells me I'm ungrateful and I suck, so it must be something that I'm doing. I'm crazy, I'm nuts. You question yourself and think it's just you, you're the problem. Because your dad clearly loves you because he says all these nice things, or he gives you a roof over your head and he reminds you of that over and over again. He reminds you that you're not really abused and you have a great family. And if you have a problem, then it's a personal problem. It has nothing to do with him. So that's why as you get older, it's harder to detect because it seems very normal. So if you don't realize that you have an unhealthy narcissistic parent when you're young, when you become an adult, it will seem like it's normal, this is normal behavior. So then you won't be able to have healthy relationships. You will either attract these relationships or you will have similar traits to your narcissistic father. So that's why if you have not detected that you have a narcissistic parent, as you get older, you will say that you have a great dad. So I've talked about this in my narcissistic mother video, but I think it's super important to talk about the roles that the children fill when you have a narcissistic father, because it is pretty similar and it is important to be aware. So there's usually 3 roles that the kids will play, and it changes depending on who gives him the most supply at the time. So there's a period of time where you could be the golden child, there's a period of time where you could be the lost, there's a period of time you could be the scapegoat, but generally there is a big portion of your life where you will remain being one of them. But it can change at any time. So there's the 3 roles. There's the scapegoat, the golden child, and the lost child. So with the golden child, this is the child where the narcissistic father sees that this child has the traits that they're looking for. They can get the most positive supply from. So this golden child then becomes the favorite. They can do no wrong. They are held on this pedestal and they are completely enabled and they are not called out when they are in the wrong. So then this child becomes completely entitled, selfish, and self-absorbed. Now the thing with the golden child is that when that child does not meet the expectations of the narcissistic father, they then throw them off that pedestal and then they degrade them, then they emotionally or physically abuse them. They then become the source of their narcissistic father's rage. So then when that happens, that child will do anything to get that love from their narcissistic father again. So as you can see, it teaches that child to completely lose themselves and just mold into this person that their narcissistic father wants them to be. So then that's why the golden child is more likely to become a narcissist. Not all, but most often they do become a narcissist because they completely don't form a sense of self, which is exactly what a narcissist is. They become a shell of a person, and they become an entitled, self-absorbed, selfish person. And they think that other people are extensions of themselves because their narcissistic father made this child the extension of themselves. And a lot of shame and guilt were inflicted on them when they didn't meet that expectation. And they also were taught to not have their own feelings. Now, there's another role, which is the scapegoat. Generally, these children are known as the problem children, the bad ones. They're the troublemakers. These are the ones that have no problem calling out what they see. So they see something's wrong, they'll call it out. And because of this, because they're poking at the narcissistic father's delusional world, they then get the brunt of the abuse. They get physically abused, they get more neglected, they get more emotionally abused, they especially get emotionally neglected, they don't have any of their needs really met, they're the ones that are gaslit the most, they are the ones that are blamed the most, they are the ones that are blamed for the problems. If your narcissistic father hit his foot, it's because of the scapegoat. They did something to cause that. Usually the scapegoat then forms to become more codependent because they get zero validation, and the only way that they are able to escape the narcissistic father's abuse is to help, please, or give. And so they have to read their narcissistic father's emotions to survive that abuse. So then you absorb that, and then you naturally feel like you have to help, people please, and take care of others, so that way people will like you, and also so that way it's the way that you feel validated the most, because you got zero validation from your narcissistic father. Then there is the lost child. The lost child is one that's like in the background. They're the ones that are neglected the most. They don't really receive as much abuse as the golden child and the scapegoat, but they're the ones who are more of the dreamers. They're the ones that want to escape. They see something's off. They see the way their brothers and sisters are being treated, or their brother's being treated, their sister's being treated, and they realize that it's wrong. And so they just try to stay out of the abuse's way. The lost child is the one that literally will be lost as an adult. They have to completely find themselves. They had no real parenting, they had no real guidance, so they'll live their life kind of being lost and trying to figure out their way. These ones probably are more likely to be quiet or shy, or they will become more like people pleasers and more codependent. It's also really important to point out that it can be hard to realize that you have a narcissistic parent or a narcissistic father because of the trauma bond. Now, I've talked a ton about the trauma bond before, but it's basically a bond that is formed because of intermittent reinforcement, which is you being addicted to the high highs after experiencing those low lows. And you never know when it's gonna happen, so you're always looking for that high. So because of that, you physically, from chemicals, from dopamine, serotonin, you become addicted to this parent and you feel like you need them. You don't really see where they're wrong because of that addiction. So you may notice like something may be a little bit off with your narcissistic father, but then you go back and to think about those times when they love bombed you and the times when they were so good to you. So they're like, they can't really be that bad if they did all these good things. And that is because of the cycle of abuse, because of the love bombing, degrading, discarding, that constant cycle. So let's talk about the more common traits that are seen in narcissistic fathers. So usually they have the general selfish, entitled, manipulators, but there are specific things that narcissistic fathers do more than narcissistic mothers. So one trait that's more dominant in narcissistic fathers is they're huge bullies. So they will try to intimidate their child, whether it's physically, whether that's emotionally, and they will be very threatening. So they may call you names like, oh, what are you, a wimp? Oh, you're gonna go cry to your mommy. Maybe if you're the daughter of a narcissistic father, they're gonna be like, you're not going out like that, you look like a slut. They'll degrade you. They will just use bullying tactics to make you feel bad about yourself and make you feel like you have to do something different. You have to change. They will bully you into doing what they want by being very threatening or by being very degrading. Another thing is that they will always act like they are better. They are above others. So somehow they are the smartest person they know. Somehow they know way more than you. Somehow they are the best at their job. Somehow they are the most rich. They are the most religious. They are the best at everything. And everyone else is below them. Everyone else is dumber. Everyone else can't even compare to him. He's a king. He knows everything. So if there's ever a time when you try to bring something up, or if you ever correct him, oh man, buckle your seatbelt, because it's about to be a bumpy ride. You do not know better than him. He knows everything. He's up here and everyone else is beneath him. Another thing is that you are an extension of him. He cannot see outside of himself. You are not your own person. You don't have your own personality traits. You are his, and you are not allowed to have boundaries. You're not allowed to have different ideas. You cannot go against him, because if you do, there's hell to pay. Another thing is that they're very controlling. So they want an input into everything you're doing. Like I had said before, they will be overly involved because they want a say in it. They also may be controlling about stupid things like what you eat, what you're doing, who you're talking to, what you look like, what you're dressed like, what you say, what you don't say. You have to make sure you mold yourself into who he wants, otherwise there will be complete chaos. Another thing is that they're a teacher and an expert. They always want to teach you something. They want to teach you how to ride your bike. They want to teach you how to brush your teeth. They want to teach you how to walk. They want to be the one that teaches you all of the important milestones, because that's how they get a huge ego boost, is that they're the ones who taught you that. And you will forever have to owe him because he did all those things for you. He most likely really latches on to something specific where he gets a huge ego about it, where he has to be the one that teaches you about that thing. And if you say anything different, you're a moron and you don't know any better. Another thing, extremely self-absorbed. No matter what, same thing with like the narcissistic mother, no matter what, even if it looks selfless, it's still for selfish reasons. There's always a hidden agenda. So your narcissistic father plans a whole family getaway. It's so that he can take pictures and put it on social media, or he can brag to everybody. He packs your lunch. It's because he wants to brag to everyone that he takes really good care of his kids. He wants to be front and center at your plays and at your concerts. It's because he's the reason why you're like that. You have his genes. He practiced with you. Every single thing he does is not for you. It's never for you. It's for him. And then same thing with the narcissistic mother, conditional love. So when you do exactly what he wants, he loves you to death. You're the positive supply. And when you don't do what he wants, he takes that love away. You get kicked out. You're a piece of garbage, you get silent treatment, you get all of the worst. Another thing is that your narcissistic father may care a lot about money. So he may care about his status, he may be very stingy with money and doesn't really want to give out any. Status and how much money he has is his main priority. Having a narcissist in your life is the worst thing possible. But then when you are raised by a narcissist, it's on 10. Like, it is horrible because you are this helpless child that is looking to rely on a parent that is supposed to be loving, guiding, and nurturing. But you don't get that. Instead, you get the complete opposite. So how do you heal from having a narcissistic father? Well, it's kind of similar when you heal from a narcissistic mother. One, you have to definitely accept and educate and admit to yourself that you don't have a healthy father. And you have to admit to yourself that he did wrong you and he did all of these things to you. You have to mourn the loss of this parent that you thought you had and you wish you had. You have to grieve. You have to let your emotions come out. And it may not be a one-time thing. It's going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be moments when you're okay and you accept that he is this way. And there's going to be other moments like you may be triggered, like you see a family on the TV, or something happens with your friend and their father, or you see something that triggers you, you will be emotional all over again. So during those times, you have to just take a moment, let yourself feel that emotion, and then that's when you nurture and soothe yourself through it. That's how you heal that inner child. You may need to go to moments when you were a child and heal those moments. Give that little you the things that you didn't have. Recreate loving moments that you didn't have for little you. And because you didn't have security or that dominant male figure in your life, you now need to give yourself that security, and you also need to surround yourself around people that will give you that security rather than that back and forth and that constant abuse cycle. And you have to understand your narcissistic father will never change. Never ever. He will always be like this. Even when he gives you that little glimpse of hope when he's on his best behavior, it's still part of the cycle. There's nothing you could do to say to him or behavior you could do that would change that. And not even really if he went to go get help, that could change it. It's hard ingrained and wired in his brain. He doesn't have the capability to be able to self-reflect, and you can't go anywhere if you can't self-reflect. He can't see where he's wrong. He's in a delusional state. So the only thing you can do is protect yourself. If your narcissistic father is still in your life, then you have to set boundaries. You have to enforce boundaries. You have to protect yourself. And you have to accept that you'll never have a normal relationship with this person. And I have a ton of videos on this channel about healing from the narcissistic person and how to deal with a narcissistic person, which I would definitely recommend. So what do you guys think? Leave it all in the comments below. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Hey, guys. What was that? They will bully you. They will bully you. Oh my God, what is this, a hornet? What are you? Oh my God. These bugs are evolving, I swear to God. Take me off this planet. I'm ready to go to Mars. I vacuumed. I'm going to hell.